straightforward amendment to basically prohibit the use of federal enforcement of immigration purposes. I also am in support of Mr. Horsford's amendment that should be at the desk to basically direct $40 billion from Argentina to be used for healthcare purposes. This is a big issue in my district. I serve on the House Agriculture Committee, and I talk to my growers in my district all the time. And while they're very upset over the use of the $40 billion from the Trump administration to prop up soybean and cattle, it's something that they're very upset about. We should have had a farm bill in 2023. They're upset over that. And they've asked me, what could we be doing? What else is going to be happening in this current Congress? And I said, well, you should also be thinking about healthcare. We have about 4 different rural hospitals in the state of Oregon that are at risk of going under. And for us in Oregon, a lot of my rural communities actually use the Affordable Care Act, and they recognize that this is something that's really big and perilous for them. And we've had hospital closures where women from rural parts of my district, actually in Congressman Cliff Bence's district, where our labor and delivery units have closed and people have had to drive much farther than 2 hours to, as they're about to have a baby, and that's a long time to drive if you're in a snowstorm. So taking that $40 billion that President Trump has used to prop up soybean and cattle, and again, my growers and my farmers are apoplectic over this, but to use it for healthcare, especially for our rural communities who are some of the biggest users of the Affordable Care Act, would be a great way to make amends to our rural communities who are in a very difficult position right now. So I support that amendment as well. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Salinas. Mr. Vindman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So we're now living through the longest shutdown in this country's history. And I actually was in the Trump White House for the previously longest shutdown in this country's history. And what thing is in common between those two? Donald Trump is president. And so last week we just had elections in a very purple state here in Virginia, in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And the message was very clear that chaos and cruelty are not popular policies, okay? We're less than a year out from the midterms. And so I just want to remind my colleagues that I don't see anybody in the room right now, but that this shutdown, these policies to eliminate health care for millions of Americans, the corruption that we're seeing in the White House and now in the Senate is outrageous, and the American people are paying attention. So today's Veterans Day, and as I look around, I think I'm the only veteran member in the room, so I'm going to take a little bit of privilege here. I was at my VFW, and I was having a beer with some paratroopers and Marines and others, and I wanted to get a sense from them. What are they thinking about the shutdown? What are they thinking about the state of affairs? You know what? They want and they demand accountability. They put their lives on the line, and they fought for this country, a certain set of values, and what we're seeing from this administration, from this Congress, is complete antithesis to those values. Many federal employees live in my district, and they're American patriots that see the lawlessness in this administration. A few weeks ago, I was at a food bank, and it was billed as giving fresh produce to federal employees that had been furloughed and that weren't sure when they would receive their next paycheck. And the line stretched around the building. It didn't get any shorter the entire time I was there. And every federal agency was represented. There was a guy in a TSA uniform that had come after work, DOJ, DOD, Department of Labor, everybody. And that was not, that was certainly something that was striking to me. But the thing that struck me, frankly, the most was the lady that was in the line next to me that was handing out food was a Customs and Border Protection employee that was essential. So she came after work to hand out food to her, friends and neighbors. And
people have a heart, man.
I got to talking with her. She was also a Gold Star spouse. that she had lost her husband in 2008 in combat. These are the people that are being impacted by these terrible policies.
Crazy.
So look, we find ourselves at kind of like a pretty pivotal moment, right? We have obviously American healthcare that we're seized with. That's what the shutdown was about. But something really outrageous, in my opinion. This is my first time appearing before this committee, but I really couldn't sit on the sidelines. Spent 25 years in the Army, half of it as a lawyer, as a prosecutor. I was an ethics lawyer during the Trump White House, which I will tell you was not easy. And look, we have an opportunity to actually do what's right. I heard some of my colleagues, Mr. Scott, made a pretty sort of impassioned statement about having a problem with the payola scheme. It's a quid pro quo. The senators, the 8 senators, they want payback for having supported the president, and it's only senators. And what do?
Better man
The
on
Senate
that?
had an opportunity to make a decision. We are an independent, separate, co-equal part of Congress. We have an obligation to do what's right. My colleague in the previous panel was right. People hate Congress. They have a low opinion of Congress. I mean, this reflects poorly on all of us. So how about we actually do the right thing? Let's not worry about what the Senate's going to do. The Senate can get back and vote on this thing this week in the next 48 hours if they wanted to. Let's take this terrible provision, this payola, this quid pro quo that the Senate put in to enrich itself out of this bill. It's simple as that. And I'm just going to read an extract from the New York Times article that came out about this. It says, it was published yesterday. A spending package expected to be approved as part of a deal to reopen the government would create a wide legal avenue for senators to sue for as much as $500,000 each per offense when federal investigators search their phone records without notifying them. These are extracts. The provision tucked into a measure to fund the legislative branch appears to immediately allow for 8 GOP senators to sue the government over their phone records being seized in the course of an investigation by Jack Smith, the former special counsel, into a riot. I'll call it an insurrection on January 6th because that's what it was. Each violation would be worth at least $500,000 in any legal claim. I think I'm getting the signal here, so I'm going to wrap up. So,
Can we just give a little leeway to a veteran on Veterans Day?
I'm almost done. So each violation is $500,000 according to the bill language, which we know can stretch into the millions. And it waives sovereign immunity, other defenses for the government. So, I mean, this is just a straight up payout. So how about this? I'm gonna make an offer, even though I don't see any of my colleagues here. And my offer is this, is that we know that the Republican majority is only a couple of seats. You can only stand to lose a couple of votes. If you can strip out this provision from this bill, even though I don't like many aspects of it, I will hold my breath and vote for it if you will strip out this provision. That is my offer.
Oh, damn. I'm going to find the provision for y'all in 1 second. Y'all are talking about.
Recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, it is good to see you. Thank you, as always, for powering through, Madam Chair. I will say it is hard to see so many
What's up,
emphases
Shawan?
to your
Appreciate
language.
you.
I really
What's happening?
know
How
this
you
is
doing
an
tonight?
important debate and discussion that we're having for the American people, and there's no other business being conducted. There's no other reason that members who are serving on this very important committee aren't in this room, because for millions. Oh, well, I hope that they are listening, Madam Chair. I hope they are listening, because I have very important things from my heart that I want to share. And I'm speaking not just on behalf of the people I represent from Maryland 2nd, but for all Americans, because millions of families are being affected by this shutdown. It is the longest in our nation's history. It has been a real hardship. The unnecessary suffering must end, and the continuing resolution is a step forward, but it falls far too short of providing the relief that all Americans deserve. We can do better, and we can do better right now in this committee and in this House. We can pay our workers, feed hungry families, provide reliable public services while also protecting working families from exploding healthcare premiums and copays and what amounts to a massive tax increase. We can do that by reopening the government and preserving those ACA credits that we've heard so much about. We've already heard Republicans in Congress recently passed $1 trillion in tax cuts that disproportionately affects the ultra-wealthy. President Trump, we've heard already, has marshaled $40 billion in resources to bail out his buddy in Argentina, another $1 billion to retrofit a new jet. Surely we can find the resources to extend healthcare subsidies for 1 year, as several House Republicans have already proposed in a bipartisan framework released last week to help end the shutdown. As I mentioned, there are nearly 24 Republicans who have, one way or another, endorsed some extension of the ACAs. But I'm here before you, Madam Chair, because I'm also deeply concerned in what Ranking Member DeLauro brought forward, that the so-called deal does absolutely nothing about cuts that are unilaterally being enacted by the executive branch. President Trump and this Congress have already slashed more than $9 billion from the last bipartisan budget that was passed. He's halted energy-creating jobs and jobs potential by explicitly targeting Democratic-led states and Democratic-led districts in Maryland and across the country. He's explicitly threatened funding for the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, a project that is so important. It is probably the largest infrastructure project in the Mid-Atlantic. So important. So any path forward should include one simple guarantee. The commitments we make to the American people and the commitments we make to each other should not be allowed to unilaterally be undone by the administration tomorrow. If we shake hands, that deal should stick. Without that protection, no deal is worth the paper it's written on. But I'm not just asking you to believe in me, Madam Chair. I'm asking you to agree with our Republican colleagues. Congressman Womack questioned why any Democrat would support a deal if, and I quote, "You know that whatever you negotiate is going to be subject to the knife pulled out by Rust vote." Senator Murkowski told reporters that Democrats should be asking themselves, why am I going to be helpful if Mr. Vogt and OMB are just going to do a backdoor move and rescind what we've been working on? We are an important institution. We are a co-equal branch. We should be vigorously guarding our power of the purse, not giving it away. I offer two straightforward amendments to do that, Madam Chair. One eliminates the President's authority to expedite the rescission package. It puts back into regular order the Senate practices that requires a 60-vote threshold. If we're going to have a bipartisan agreement to enact a budget, let's have a bipartisan agreement to remove a budget. The Second Amendment prevents those so-called pocket rescissions, specifically requiring any funding appropriated by Congress be obligated if we are within 90 days of its expiration. These amendments are simple, but they are important. They're about checks and balances. They are about restoring Congress's control over matters of spending, just as our founders intended. And I know they're not here listening because you told me so, Madam Chair. For members who have predetermined that they will not vote for any amendments, I just have to ask them, and if they were here, I would ask them, and I mean this sincerely, Madam Chair. How egregious do the provisions have to be to change their mind? Is there a point? Is there a breaking point in terms of the self-enrichment item that I didn't even come here to talk about? But what is the point at which we say we can fix these things right here, right now, and force the Senate to do what's right? Do the things that stop having Americans have no trust in these institutions. This is why Americans hate Congress. This is why.
And what they're talking about, I'm going to pull up here, is provision in the bill. Let me make sure it looks good from people on the vertical. Oop, that doesn't. Got to slide it over. Give me 1 second, y'all. Oh. Patience, patience. All right. So the section they're talking about, Democrats really brought up in the bill, is the instance of a violation, and I'll get to the previous provisions before that, will basically give senators an ability to get $500,000 or more for damages. Now the damages would be for, scroll up in the section, because it's got to be in the statute or the staff analysis, all right? And this is what they're saying is tucked in. Out of this entire bill, section 213 amends section 10 regarding Legislative Branch Appropriations Act, and basically tucks in a lot of things regarding covered data, regarding emails, electronic data, metadata, and things of that nature, but also jumps down to have some basically striking provisions in the bill. And I'm not going line for line in this for what it is, but what did I catch earlier? Basically, if the senator is a target of a criminal investigation and they get noticed, essentially the Democrats are highlighting the fact of the provisions in this law, this section, also in the New York Times article, will basically say, all right, cool, it's carte blanche, whatever they've done. So I guess the 8 senators, Fetterman, senators from New Hampshire, Maine, Nevada included, Tim Kaine included, basically saying, okay, this provision was put in for them, going back to January 6th or other things of that nature. And it's kind of crazy to have this written into a statute, but it's basically saying if they worked in their official capacity in any way and they end up getting subpoenaed, that it would not be right. And the bigger issue is government's been shut down 41 days. Cool. We've seen the impact of aviation flights, people that cut 20%. Also a fact of people waiting 3-4 hours to get on a flight. We've also seen the impact it's had on SNAP, Medicare, Medicaid, insurance rates going up, all these different things. But now you get to a point of these 8 senators have agreed on a resolution to send back to the House. And you know that the House is going to pass it as is because they can't afford to wait on that issue, right? But to me, excuse me, didn't mean to burp me off face. The narrative the Democrats are throwing out here in their amendments sound good. Really kind of interesting. I'll go back to some takes earlier. I was listening, playing FIFA, so I wasn't, all the way locked in, so I wasn't going to stream it. But it is a point of saying, all right, cool. If this is going to happen, how do we prepare our folks? How do you prepare people for the impact of what this is outside of that? Not only Medicare, Medicaid, but also the money that's going to be coming down for community health programs and other things of that nature, right? Because there's military money in there, money for vets, money for everything. And I get the fact of Democrats fighting against this, but at the same time realizing there are no numbers there. So what's the fight look like? Because the bill going back to the Senate is probably not going to happen. I'll bet on that now. But for it to happen this way, I think there has to be a point of educating folks about the money trickling down. I've gone through some of it. I've been talking a bit too much, but I actually started the stream with the congressional people talking what it is. But if you first time here, I am the hip hop lobbyist, a professional lobbyist in the state of Florida. Really want to thank y'all for tapping in with the stream tonight. Like I said, I'm a gamer. I'm a lobbyist, government affairs professional, energy consultant, a whole lot of all put together. But let me get back to this. I'm going to pull up the numbers later, but got some Jasmine Crockett coming up. I know y'all love and hate Jasmine Crockett. But let's get back to the members meeting now.
Why people are so frustrated with our politics.
Tonight, at least, this late.
So, and it's why I'm here asking you to support these amendments in the spirit with which they are presented, in bipartisanship and with respect for the Constitution. I thank you for the time, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Olszewski. Ms.
I
Stanton.
didn't get no votes on that one, man. Kamala got more votes than that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
My bad, y'all.
With the 15 minutes remaining, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Veterans Day.
Yeah, I'm a gamer,
I
bro.
represent a very humble set of communities in New Mexico's 1st Congressional District, and like others on this panel, I had the opportunity to celebrate and to honor our veterans in New Mexico today. And so I do have to say, Madam Chairwoman, I was looking forward
I am a
to being
gamer.
back here and having the opportunity to debate this bill. But over the last 5 hours since I've landed in Washington and listened to this debate, I just feel sad.
Who's for
I
Trump?
feel sad.
I'm for the American people.
The people I represent are humble people. people who struggle to put food on the table, who struggle to put a roof over their head, tens of thousands of federal workers who for the last how many ever weeks it's been, haven't known whether or not their jobs are going to be there at the end of the shutdown. People who literally didn't know how they were going to feed their children this weekend.
I'm black too.
They literally didn't know how they were going to feed their children this weekend. And so I find it heartbreaking, to be honest, to come here and sit in this committee. And literally, Madam Chair, I do appreciate that you are here doing your duty, but all other 8 members of the Republican Party who sit on this panel are not even in this room. And for the last 54 days, the House hasn't even been in session. It hasn't held votes, it hasn't heard bills, it hasn't sworn in the duly elected Congresswoman from Arizona. I heard a lot of expertise today about health insurance and how the Affordable Care Act is broken, but not a single one of the other 8 people on this panel, and I know you were here, Madam Chairwoman, because I have been back and forth across this country 13 times since the shutdown happened, and last time I was here, you gavelled me down on the House floor when I tried to introduce my bill, which is the exact amendment which I'm introducing tonight to save staff.
She did that to me too, so don't feel too bad.
So I know, Madam Chair. Madam, yes, so you get a pass. But I do have to say that, you know, for your other 200 plus colleagues, the real question that I wanted to come here and ask tonight is, where have you been? What have you been doing for the last 8 weeks? Is the literally hundreds of thousands of people in my district didn't know how they were going to pay their rent, pay their mortgages, buy gas, put food on the table, and feed their children, where were you? Where were you? And you're not even in this room tonight to even answer that question. I literally find it disgusting. I mean, it is a privilege to serve in Congress. It is a privilege. I grew up in a low-income family. I grew up in a humble family like the people that I represent, and I don't take for granted that I have the opportunity to come here every week and represent my people and show up for my people. So I want to know from our colleagues who I can literally hear laughing in the other room, where were you? Where were you for the last 8 weeks while the House was shut down and people in this country were left without food on the table? While the president was playing golf, he was demolishing the East Wing, he was throwing parties at Mar-a-Lago, and giving American taxpayers to a dictator in Argentina to bail him out before his election. Where were you? But you're not even here to answer that question tonight. So I don't know what else to say except for that I will explain my amendment, which is to protect SNAP. Because while the president chose to not disperse food benefits to 42 million Americans, and I heard one of the gentlemen on the panel earlier say that he did everything he could. That is just a blatant lie because he appealed a court who directed him to put that money into EBT accounts for 42 million Americans and even asked the Supreme Court to intervene after a court ordered him to, because that is a lie. That is a lie. So the amendment that I am introducing today would protect SNAP benefits. It would make sure that no president, whether it's Donald Trump or any other president, could ever withhold SNAP benefits again during a shutdown. It would make sure continuity in the program, and it would reimburse states like New Mexico, who took the unprecedented action of spending tens of millions of dollars to make sure that our children would not starve, because we showed up for our people. Unlike, I'm sorry to say, Madam Chairwoman, your colleagues who are not here tonight. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Horsford, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, Ranking Member McGovern, you know, there have been really important historic moments that have happened in this very room and in this chamber that we're honored to serve in the House of Representatives. And I think back over those moments, and I wonder what those leaders had to do to compel our colleagues to care enough to prick the hearts and the minds of the people that we serve with and the constituents that we're honored to serve. And so I think about that as we're here in this moment, a moment when federal employees are going without pay, when 500,000 Nevadans wonder whether their nutrition assistance benefits will arrive or not, like Charles Gowdy, the Vietnam-era veteran, Navy veteran that I met with this morning before I got on the plane to come here to do my job. Or the 104,000 people in my state who are about to get kicked off of their health insurance because of this big, beautiful bill that cuts their health care and Republicans' refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, even though some of their own members know that it's necessary. At a moment like this, the Trump administration decided to give a $40 billion bailout to Argentina right out of the blue. Now, my constituents are wondering, where the hell did this money come from to begin with? Where's the transparency? No congressional consultation, no explanation to the taxpayers who have to fund it. The clear winners are the hedge fund billionaires who bet on Argentina's economy. It directly benefits them, and it sells out America. The American people get nothing out of it, even though Trump himself said we were going to put America first. Just a few weeks ago, this administration said that there wasn't enough money for health care. That 24 million Americans now stand to lose access to health insurance as a result. And somehow Republicans found plenty of money to ensure that their billionaire speculators make out. And once again, Republicans have made clear who they work for, and it's not the working people of America. The truth is, Argentina's experience since their president took office in 2023 is a cautionary tale for the United States. Their president in Argentina has cut their health care budget in half. Sound familiar? He fired thousands of public health workers. Sound familiar? Roughly 40% of Argentines now rely on a collapsing public health system and can no longer afford basic care. Sound familiar? Cancer patients die waiting for treatment, and infectious diseases spread rapidly. Sound familiar? And this was done in the name of reducing bureaucracy and waste. The same justification that we hear from my Republican colleagues. If we continue down this path, we know exactly where it will lead us. So my amendment tonight would redirect that $40 billion bailout from Argentina. It would redirect the money that Trump said wouldn't benefit the American people, and we would use those funds to extend the advanced premium tax credits for 2 years. Now, I'm like other people on this dais. I come from humble beginnings. I don't know what $40 billion looks like. I don't know what $1 million looks like. Neither do most of my constituents. Well, $40 billion that they use to bail out Argentina covers health care under the advanced premium tax credits for 2 years. This is an investment in the health and economic security of the American people. It's a far better use of taxpayer dollars than sending billions overseas. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this amendment. And I also want to just speak for a moment to this payola. And I don't know if Speaker Johnson read the bill or not. Did he negotiate the bill? Did House Republicans have a say in the bill or not? Because if so, this provision that pays out these senators, which is a corrupt provision, is on the watch of Speaker Johnson. So maybe he should resign. Maybe House Republicans who reviewed the bill, because we didn't review the bill, and this whole notion that we can't do anything now because the Senate is gone, stop gaslighting the American people. There are two ways for the Senate to dispose of an amendment once it's adopted by the House. One is by unanimous consent or voice vote, which is the most common, and the other is by roll call if requested. So don't say that the House doesn't have power. We have the power to do our job. You know that this is corrupt, just like the $40 billion bailout to Argentina is corrupt, and it's time that this House do its job. Thank you, Speaker Johnson, for finally calling back the House of Representatives. You don't just work for the Republican conference, you work for the House of Representatives and all of its members. I yield back.
Ms. Berrigan, you are recognized, pardon me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also am disappointed to not see other Republicans here today. I couldn't help but overhear a Republican member after she voted walking out saying the chair wants us to leave. And it only raises the question, what are they afraid of in the questions from the members? So I was going to start by welcoming Republicans for returning from their 7+ week vacation. I can't really do that because they've been instructed by the chair to leave the room. Now, U.S. House of Representatives, our jobs are we travel to Washington, D.C. We attend hearings. We vote on matters. That is part of our job. Most Americans don't get to take a 7+ week break from their jobs. They don't just get to stay home. And if I remember correctly, at one point it was Republicans who were telling people to get back to work. But instead of doing the work to address the rising healthcare crisis, House Republicans decided to walk away. And now families are paying the price. The Republican-led Senate has sent us a funding bill that fails to extend the healthcare tax credits that are critical to keeping healthcare costs down for tens of millions of working Americans. And as I have sat here through this hearing, I can't help but just kind of think about what Republicans have said here today. Republicans have said here today in this hearing is, we don't like the Affordable Care Act. We didn't even vote for it. So if there was any positive thing coming from it, it wasn't us. Republicans have said, we voted to get rid of it, and we will vote to get rid of it. And Republicans have said, we are not going to help the American people keep their health care. They've also said, and we have no plan to help Americans have affordable health care. Just think about that. If you're in California's 22nd district, which is the Central Valley, represented by a Republican, which includes communities like Visalia and Hanford, think about this. This is the Republican position. We are not going to help you keep your health care. If you're in California's 48th district, which is in central and eastern parts of San Diego County, including Fallbrook and Escondido and Temecula, Republicans there, that's what Republicans are doing here in Washington. Those members of Congress, will they take action or will they just give lip service? Because when we hear somebody say we don't like something, but then they don't actually take action, it's really just falls by the wayside. Actions are louder than words. The Trump Republican healthcare crisis will now continue without relief. These tax credits are a lifeline. They help millions of American families afford healthcare coverage. These are the same families in my district and across the country who have received notices that their premiums will skyrocket in the coming year. Lydia in my district, a small business owner from Long Beach, told me that her premiums will take almost $1,200 out of her pocket next year. That's how much her rate's gonna go up. And an educator from Long Beach I spoke with over the phone was hit with an increase that went from $383 a month to almost $1,000 a month, over 260% increase. I find it hard to believe that Republicans don't have constituents in their district who haven't received these notices. We know at least one Republican House member has said even her family member has been hit. It's clear that people in my district cannot afford these increases. The tax credits ensure that people can see a doctor when their child has a fever. They allow Americans to fill prescriptions. They provide the stability families need when medical emergencies arise. Without the tax credits, some will delay treatment. Many more people will choose to go without coverage, and we know what that means. People will get sicker,
Some
and
will
people
not say
will
sweet,
die. We are in the middle of open enrollment, when Americans need to make budget decisions about what their health care coverage will look like next year. Families need relief now. They cannot wait. The crisis is entirely of Republicans' making. President Trump and Republicans can find billions of dollars to bail out Argentina. They can pay for tax breaks for billionaires. They can even find money to build a fancy new ballroom. They can even give money away in this bill to 8 Republican senators. But they can't be bothered to spend $1 to help Americans keep their health care costs down. They're willing to let Americans shoulder the burden of higher premiums and less access to care. We cannot and we must not allow that. House Democrats have fought for weeks to protect Americans' right to affordable health care. We've been clear. Reopening the government must include a bipartisan agreement to extend these tax credits. We will not give up. Our constituents depend on it. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Last time I checked, you were in charge. You own this vote that will increase the health care costs of tens of millions of hardworking Americans. To support this bill as written would be to abandon people who voted us here, and to support the corrupt slush fund in the bill to pay 8 Republican senators. I want to know if there is a backdoor agreement for a kickback to people who support this. I urge my colleagues to reject this legislation and insist on any agreement that gives the American people what they deserve, affordable health care. Thank you.
I think, honestly, for a bit, it's going to be tough for a lot of Democrats to really buy this narrative. They're split. They're saying they gave up, they gave in. The other side is basically saying, like, listen, we got to compromise. We got to get the government back open. This can't go on forever. But I don't know how you sell this to the American people, blaming either side when you had 8 Democrats who said it's time to negotiate. But the provisions in the bill that I talked about before my son woke up. Thank y'all for tapping in, though.
Mr. Raskin, you and Mr. Olszewski are anchoring the table from Maryland. So you're next, and then Ms. Hayes, I'll recognize you after that. Mr. Raskin.
The Free State will stand in the breach, Madam Chair. Thank you for your indulgence, and Mr. McGovern, thank you as well. Like Ms. Leisure Fernandez, whom I woke up this morning, I think at 7:30 when I learned of this provision. I've got an amendment to delete Section 213. This $1 million jackpot provision is one of the most blatantly corrupt provisions for political self-dealing and plunder of public resources ever proposed in the United States Congress.
There they go.
And we're watching it happen in real time. You know, it was said that the Roman Senate was so corrupt, so drenched in bribery and private self-enrichment that the senators were actually as corrupt as Julius Caesar and as Caligula, the tyrannical maniac. I don't know if the Republicans in the Senate today are as corrupt as Donald Trump, but they're on the path. And they're right behind him. If this were to pass, this astounding provision would give 8 Republican senators a personal payday of at least $1 million each, paid for directly by the U.S. taxpayers at a time when we're throwing millions of people off of their health care. I want to associate myself with the eloquent remarks of Mr. Vindman, but I want to make one dissenting remark. Section 213 is actually about $1 million, not $500,000. And I'll tell you why. It's retroactive to 2022, which is extraordinary. It's an ex post facto civil law. It allows, quote, any United States senator, not any U.S. citizen, mind you, not even any lowly member of Congress, mind you, but any senator to receive $500,000 from the taxpayers if the Department of Justice subpoenas their phone bill without giving them notice. That's $500,000, and then an extra $500,000 if the Department of Justice seeks a lawful non-disclosure order from a federal judge. That's a cool $1 million they're handing to each of these senators. Case closed. It's over.
Crazy.
They want this pirate's treasure simply for having their call records turned over by the phone company in response to a lawful grand jury subpoena. That happens tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times a year. So are our MAGA colleagues dealing themselves $1 million payout, suddenly civil libertarians saying they want to change the law so grand jury subpoenas can't go out for any Americans unless they're notified first? No, it's not for all Americans. It's not even for the second-class citizens over in the House of Representatives, those present and those absent in the other room. It's not for any of us. It's for 100 Americans. They get special privileges under this criminal justice right. It's a right for those 100 people to say, if a grand jury subpoenas us in a lawful investigation, and if a judge orders non-disclosure, they get $1 million. Wow, that's incredible.
Crazy. What y'all think about that, Chet?
Why are they doing it? Well, this multi-million-dollar self-care package is designed to soothe the feelings and feather the nests of senators who Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and the other 77 people they pardoned yesterday, or maybe it was the day before yesterday, worked to enlist in their criminal efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election, which I don't need to tell you, Joe Biden won by more than 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College, as determined not just by the House and the Senate, but also by 60 federal and state courts that rejected every fraudulent claim of electoral corruption and fraud. Well, following this evidence, including many calls made by Giuliani and the president to U.S. senators who were on the floor on January 6th, they said, well, the grand jury looked and saw the evidence. The president was in touch with all these senators. They wanted the pen register for them. It's not a phone tap, which is what they're lying about over there. No contents of the call were revealed, but it was a record of the calls. It's like your phone bill. And the grand juries do this all the time. But now they're saying that really hurt their feelings. They don't think U.S. senators uniquely should be subject to such treatment. They want $1 million payout because of that now. It's extraordinary. Now, I doubt it even is consistent with equal protection. I think it violates equal protection. It does not pass the lowest level of equal protection scrutiny, which is rational basis. On what rational basis could we say that the grand jury and a federal judge could send out precisely these orders for the pen register to all Americans, members of the House, members of state legislatures, governors, mayors, but not the U.S. Senate? Come on. I mean, is this the Hunger Games? Is this the Roman Senate? I can't believe it. We are the people's house, Madam Chair. I know you agree with me about that. We're the people's house.
There they go.
So they want to treat us like the House of Commons, and they're the House of Lords. And they're going to deal themselves all kinds of special entitlements and privileges. Well, let's be the Rules Committee. I once served on this great committee. Be the Rules Committee, not the Fools Committee.
Oh, shit.
Don't roll over and play dead when the Senate decides that they want to deal themselves with this stuff.
Shit.
That provision is an insult to the House, it's an insult to the taxpayers, and it's an insult to the U.S. Constitution and the people of the United States. This must be deleted. Regardless of how you feel about everything else, this provision must be deleted. And I yield back.
Damn, okay. Listen. The Democrats are mad about that provision. Let me pull it back up here. Section 213. Let me see. Can y'all see it right? Oh, no, you can't. Let me slide it back. Oh, listen, I ain't even gonna go through it. Section 213 is pissing them off. It's pissing the Democrats off because of what they're basically saying, like we highlighted before the break, a $500,000 provision. Basically, if you go through those phone records, if they get subpoenaed in their official capacity or their personal capacity, if you tap them records, how do you feel about that, chat? Do you think that there should be a fine that the government should pay for any elected official being, I guess, their phone records being tapped? I just don't see how it should be a part of the federal spending bill, unless I was a part of the deal to get these eight Democrats. Something's in the water.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody here. I had 2 delayed flights and a train to get here because I wanted to make sure I was on this committee to say the exact same thing the last time I came before this committee, to fight for support for SNAP for the 42 million people who rely on this benefit. One of the good things about riding the train was that I had the opportunity to listen in on this committee, Madam Chair, and I heard you reference many times the working families tax, I don't know what it was, but that's just it. I don't know what that is.
Oh, shit.
I never voted on that. What was presented before the House was the one big beautiful bill that cut $187 billion from SNAP.
Ooh, damn.
What was voted on in the House was a farm bill that went after SNAP. What was voted on and presented in the House was the debt ceiling that went after SNAP. This is a program that has been under attack at every turn and now is no different.
Ooh, damn.
But I'm going to give the president the benefit of the doubt.
Talk to him.
Because what he said over the last couple weeks was that he really wanted to feed hungry children. He just didn't have the legal authority to do so.
I guess so.
Went back and forth to the court and said, no, I want to do this. I just don't have the authority to do it. The court said, absolutely you do. Appealed it again. I want to do this. So what I'm asking today is I have introduced an amendment, amendment number 24, that clarifies that the contingency fund that is set up, that the emergency SNAP benefits that are set aside
What we gonna do with him?
are in fact intended to cover an emergency such as a lapse in government funding.
Ooh, there it is.
So that if this ever happens again, the president doesn't have to go to the Supreme Court.
Right.
The Secretary of Agriculture doesn't have to ask for clarification on what the procedures are. This bill, just like the last appropriations package, set aside $6 billion in emergency contingency funding to cover benefits. The fact that we had to fight all the way to the Supreme Court for those benefits to be released is egregious. You can call it what you want, but it was using hungry people as a bargaining tool. This is Stalin-era tactics.
Damn.
And I don't think that that is what the president intended. I don't
don't
think
think so
that's
either.
what Republicans intended.
Don't think so either.
So I believe that in this moment, we can correct that to make sure it never happens again,
Talk to him.
to make sure that it is clear
Talk to him.
that the Congress, let her listen to me while I'm talking. You can talk to her when I'm done.
Oh, shit.
Make it clear that the Congress has set aside this money so that if we are ever in this situation again, hungry families, hungry children, hungry veterans who already are at risk of losing eligibility for this program once the provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act go into
Effect.
kick in.
Yeah, yeah.
We have millions of families that are already at risk of losing benefits. But those children who are not Republican or Democrat, who didn't vote for any of
They
us,
can't vote.
who are 39% of the participants who are at risk of not receiving benefits so that they don't suffer. My amendment says that the contingency fund that is set aside be used in an emergency, that we clarify that a lapse in government funding does count as an emergency and that those funds are released immediately. So families don't have to wait for the president to appeal to the Supreme Court over and over and then threaten states with punitive damages if they
shit.
don't undo releasing the benefits that they've already released. I ask that this committee make that amendment in order. I mean, of all the egregious things that are a part of this, the fact that hunger was used as a political cudgel in this moment is unconscionable. We can talk about healthcare, we can talk about so many other things. But the fact that starving children was used in order to, and I guess I hope what the American public took away from that is the people who were affected by that, the people who care deeply about that are the Democrats, because the Republicans didn't give a damn about it. I
Damn.
yield back.
We live, man. We did this is live.
Yeah, well, I want to thank this entire panel for being here. Look, I'm good to help people, not to hurt people. And I think of late government has become, everything that I believe it shouldn't be. And so many of my constituents have been hurt. They're being negatively impacted by the ACA premium, the ACA tax benefit not being extended. They've been hurt by the SNAP, withholding of SNAP. I mean, and here's the deal. And I appreciate Ms. Hayes being very diplomatic, saying that she didn't think the president intended it to be this way. But I just, you know what? I think he did. And that's what really bothers me. I mean, because he had the authority before the federal courts intervened. And not one a ruling, but 2 rulings. And then he decided he would appeal. And I was trying to think, like, who would do that? I mean, all the ICE agents got paid, right? Right, yeah. Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, all the ICE agents get paid, and, no questions asked. But, he's withholding SNAP benefits. I mean, look, we just heard about the corruption going on in the Senate where where senators can get up to $1 million if they say that a court looked at their phone records, who they called. I mean, that's it. And yet we can't extend the ACA tax credits so that 24 million people can afford their health insurance, so that they don't have to live through a nightmare of...
We could cut a deal in for this. That's what they're saying.
Or somebody who's sick and, is afraid to go to the hospital because they had to give up their insurance because they couldn't afford it, and so they're putting off getting seen by a doctor, and all of a sudden something gets much, much worse. I mean, like, what's going on in this country? I mean, $40 billion to this right-wing cuckoo clock in Argentina, but the administration can't find it within their heart to make sure that 40 million Americans get the SNAP benefits that they're entitled to. I mean, I think, I say this all the time, the more I hear Republicans, the more I hear the speaker talk about this issue, the more I come to the conclusion that we just don't share the same values. I mean, I believe that food ought to be viewed as a fundamental human right. I think you do too. I think healthcare ought to be viewed as a fundamental human right, and I think you do too. And for whatever reason, we're having these arguments over whether just regular people
I
struggling
thought I muted my bad.
can get benefits, quite frankly, that they should be entitled to. We argue over that stuff, but nobody argues over, $1 million, a special, giveaway to certain U.S. senators, or
Trying to get my clips together.
for multimillionaires and billionaires, or big corporations get all these little
What's up, Matt?
deals, or $40 billion to bail out Argentina. I mean, like this is like a Twilight Zone episode. This is crazy. This is nuts. And I think people have had it. And I said earlier today, I don't really think this is about Democrat versus Republican or left versus right. It's just about people just don't want to be ignored. They see, the president tweeting about the golden marble in the Lincoln bathroom and this new Marie Antoinette, ballroom, that he's building, while they're worried about, are they going to get food for the week? Will they be able to afford health care? Will they have to go without health care? Their rents are going up. Groceries are going up. He was on 60 Minutes saying they're not. When's the last time he was in a grocery store? And I don't know how many of you saw this, but the USDA actually sent out a notice to grocery stores, basically telling them that they cannot offer food at a discounted rate for people on EBT. I mean, like how the hell did you want?
I did. I just want to say that for many of the American people, they think that this is something that just started on November 1st. These attacks against SNAP have been going on for years. And when people realize the work requirements, the exemptions have been changed, when people realize that the age of a minor child went from 18 to 14, when people realize the administrative costs and burdens that are shifted to the state and all of the cuts that are going to be triggered by the one big beautiful bill, $178 billion in cuts to SNAP. So this isn't new. So for everyone who's thinking, I mean, even today, after my state released the benefits, you still have, not like other things where you can pay retroactively, You can't feed somebody from
No,
last week that was hungry.
You're
We
right.
still have lines outside of churches, outside of food pantries. The fact that last week we saw uniformed service members in line at food banks before they reported for duty on the base should be egregious to everybody. At the
real.
same time,
That's real.
it'd be one thing if that was happening in isolation, but it's happening against the backdrop of permanent tax cuts for the wealthiest individuals, a ballroom being built, a Great Gatsby party, $40 billion in subsidies to a foreign country. All of these things are happening at the exact time
That's crazy.
where the literally today, I'll find the money to give bonuses to TSA agents who I feel like were loyal. Where are you going to get the money? I don't know. I'll find it. But when it came to feeding hungry children, you didn't even have to look for the money. The money was right there.
It's crazy.
It was right there, and
That's
the
crazy.
president decided that he would not use it.
And I will say, I want to push back on right-wing, social media for posting a lot of really,
Congresswoman Hayes going off, man.
a lot of lies about SNAP and about who's on SNAP. I mean, there was something circulating that 59% of the people on SNAP are not Americans. I mean, it's just crazy. But you get all these followers, or or people just need to work. Well, the majority of able-bodied adults on
Just a little
SNAP
pad away
who
from
are
the
able
mic.
to work actually do work. Some work 2 jobs.
clicking all y'all ear and shit.
Still don't earn enough
My
to
bad, y'all.
qualify for SNAP. Children, senior citizens, veterans are on SNAP. And the idea that rather than making sure that people in need get the food benefit that they're entitled to, they get demonized, and all this false information gets put out there. But again, food and health care should be things that, we all should come together on. And it really bothers me that we can't, which makes me conclude that we don't share the same values. And I don't know, how things get turned around. Maybe they don't get turned around until the next election. But I don't think people can wait. People are going to lose their health care like now. And so I support your amendments, and I look forward to working with you. But I appreciate you being here at this late hour. It means a lot. Thank you.
And again, the biggest thing is, if you don't understand the political process, it's a bicameral process. The House passed their budget, they sent it to the Senate. We've been waiting this whole time for the Senate to vote on the House bill. The Senate said essentially, hey, we have these provisions we want to add to the bill. Some things we didn't like. This is our version. We're going to send it back to the House to vote on this bill. And now there are all these things that the Senate added in that weren't a part of the shutdown discussions before. Remember, it's been Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, tax provisions for Obamacare. But now, new things in there, from the $500,000 payouts for senators who end up getting looked into for any kind of criminal investigation if they don't know about it. Crazy to me. I didn't know that was a part of the conversation. But now, of course, Democrats are filing their amendments on things they're passionate about and what they care about. And Congresswoman Hayes came in very passionate here, but at the same time realizing there are a lot of Republicans who are just going to vote it out to get it to Trump. And voting it out and getting it to Trump is going to open the government faster. People are going to have their food on the table for Thanksgiving dinner, right? Then they'll forget about this. Because just like they said the week before, you can't back pay somebody for hunger, retroactively feed them for last week. But how long? 2 weeks is basically the attention span of most people for them to remember this shit. Some people remember, but I don't think it'll carry over into March, April, May for them to be like, oh yeah, they'll be like, oh, I got over that. But now they're in the midst of it. But basically, political process. If the House sends it back to the Senate, that means we're going to still be in a shutdown waiting on them to vote it through. Mike Johnson and them ain't having that. They're going to pass this through. And I hate to say it, but we're going to have to go through it. Go through it that's in the bill as well.
Thank you.
Understand what's in it.
I just want to thank this panel. I mean, it is late. You are the last panel, but it feels like we saved the best for last. No offense to everyone who came before. But, I mean, you have spoken with such passion and such heart and really laid out what the problem is with this bill. I mean, we always say our budgets reflect our values, and I think as the ranking member has just illustrated, we are talking about very different values here. Mr. Horsford, when you talk about the fact that the decision was made to send 2 years' worth of Affordable Care Act tax credit money to prop up hedge funds in Argentina, rather than extending the tax credits. Once again, we have this administration putting its thumb on the scale for the billionaires as opposed to for American
Atomic, good
families.
point.
Representative
Thanks for
Benedict,
tapping in tonight,
I really
bro.
appreciated you talking about what
Good seeing you,
you've heard
Atomic.
from veterans and from federal employees in your district, because I've been hearing the same thing in my district, that they do not like the country, the direction this country is going under this administration, and they want accountability. They don't want corruption and chaos. So it dovetailed so neatly with what I have been hearing from my constituents. And with respect to the accountability, Mr. Raskin, I was glad that you laid the connection between this crazy payola provision in the Senate bill that would basically direct taxpayer funds into the pockets of folks who were at least aligned with the president's efforts to
Trying to
undo
figure out
the
my bet on that.
2020 election. But you made the connection to the fact that just yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago now, all these pardons were issued
All right,
to
Lil.
these fake electors.
Make sure you
and
like and
to
subscribe, bro.
Mr. Giuliani and other
Or
people
subscribe at
who
least.
participated in those schemes. And again, it goes to accountability, and the accountability that the American people have the right to demand. So I would love it if you would address that.
Well, Ms. Scanlon, you and I have been on this for a long time now, ever since January 6th happened. And some of our colleagues mentioned the fact that this was a mass violent assault on the police in order to drive us out of the House chambers, the Senate chambers, in order to get to Vice President Pence, where they were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence," in order to try to force him or someone in his position to rebuff and repudiate electoral college votes of tens of millions of people from lots of states out there, including Pennsylvania, including Michigan, including Arizona. And these officers have gotten nothing from the Republican House majority, nothing. And they were wounded, they were injured, they were hospitalized, they were disfigured, they were disabled.
Appreciate that.
No fund for their families. A lot of them were forced out of their
Appreciate
jobs
you, Team Nick.
because they were so disabled they couldn't work anymore. What have they done for them? Nothing. In fact, we did get a vote for a plaque for them. It was supposed to have been put up in March of 2023, and Speaker Johnson and the Republicans won't even put up the plaque that's already been produced to honor those officers, much less give them a dime or give their families a penny, and they want to give $1 million payout to each of these Republican senators because the American justice system had the temerity to treat them like all other American citizens, which is if your number appears on the name of somebody involved on the call list of somebody involved in a criminal conspiracy, yeah, they want to know who else you were talking to. And that we're all subject to that. If they want to change that and give $1 million payout to people who have had their phone records disclosed to a grand jury, they're going to be spending billions of dollars on the American people. But those senators don't want to make that a right that all of us have. They want to make it a right just for them to have.
Well, just on that point of what is an appropriate remedy, I mean, supposedly the reason they installed this provision is some sort of discomfort with the investigation that the special counsel, Jack Smith, was doing. But hasn't Jack Smith been asked to come and testify before Congress? Couldn't he allay their fears if they would just let him testify in public?
None of those senators has gone to court to try to bring an action because there's no cause of action because their rights weren't violated.
Right.
There's no remedy because their rights weren't violated. Meantime, if they think it's bad that their phone records had to be disclosed because the grand jury wanted to see it, what do they think about the fact that our colleagues are being prosecuted for nonsense, like Monica MacGyver, who's facing 17 years in federal prison for doing her oversight duty? How about the fact they're going after Adam Schiff? not as a potential witness, but as a subject of a clearly selective, vindictive prosecution, the same kind that's taking place with James Comey? How come they're not uttering a peep about that? How come Adam Schiff's not getting his $1 million? Where's Monica MacGyver's $1 million? They're subject to much worse government persecution than people whose phone records were turned over because they were talking to conspirators on January the 6th.
I couldn't agree more. And just once again, thank you all for your passion. And I know I've spoken to Ms. Stansberry and Ms. Hayes multiple times in recent days about SNAP and just the damage it's doing in our communities. To have the president for the first time ever withholding, blocking SNAP payments that were clearly available. So thank you for your advocacy. And I think all of these amendments should be made in order. I yield back.
Sure, I'm in hearing that shit. Hey, hold on. Gotta pause the stream.
Madam Speaker.
Appreciate you. Hold on. Thank you. Appreciate that. The love on T. I don't even know how to. T-Neck. Let me just call you T-Neck. Appreciate the love tonight, man. Really appreciate the support. Not begging for it, not asking for it, but always love the drop in. Gonna take a little time for the new fans.
Give me 2 claps and a Ric Flair.
Appreciate you, boss.
I would echo the sentiments of Ranking Member McGovern and the gentleman from Pennsylvania in terms of my gratitude to all of the witnesses for your testimony and for your efforts to fight on behalf of your constituents and the American people as valiantly as you have. I want to ask you, Ranking Member Raskin, a couple of questions regarding this corrupt, January 6th kickback provision that has been the subject of much discussion this evening. I have no doubt, notwithstanding the, the feigned indignation of some of my Republican colleagues on this committee earlier about this provision, that they will undoubtedly support this provision, support this bill. And
T-Neck, my dog. Appreciate that.
And I welcome them to come back into the room. I know they're back there if they'd like to perhaps challenge that proposition. So given that, I want to make sure the record is crystal clear because, as you know, the legislative history and the intent behind this particular provision, I suspect, will become the subject of whatever future litigation unfolds as a result of this provision. I think this provision is
A lot of time, man. That would be dope, but I don't think they're gonna let that happen.
I am sure you are very familiar with the 27th Amendment. How does this not violate?
Yeah, it's going on live right now. Live reaction to a live committee meeting.
Proposition embedded in the 27th Amendment that precludes the very kind of corrupt, sort of self-dealing that this legislation provides for, right? As you know, we're not allowed to, members of Congress, the Congress as an institution cannot increase the salary of members of Congress, senators or members of the House, before an intervening election. And this provision clearly, I assume, is an attempt to subvert that, if not the plain text of the 27th Amendment, at least the spirit of it.
Yeah, I mean, my first instinct when I read this was if they want to vote a pay raise for themselves and for other members of Congress, they should put it on the table and we should move it forward. But this is a hell of a way to do it. But I'll tell you, the 27th Amendment is parallel to a number of other provisions in the Constitution. We've talked a lot about the Foreign Government Emoluments Clause. The Domestic Emoluments Clause in Article 1, Section 9 says that the salary of the president shall be fixed. It shall not be increased by $1 by him deriving other revenue from the federal government or state government.
John,
and it shall not be decreased either. That's the president's salary. And the 27th Amendment adopts very much that same approach to our salaries, which we should not be increasing our own salaries, even if it's for a tiny subset of the overall Congress. So I would say between that and the Equal Protection Clause, this thing's a constitutional loser. I mean, the Equal Protection Clause, there is strict scrutiny and heightened scrutiny when you're discriminating on the basis of race and gender and so on. But every law has to pass some minimal rational basis scrutiny. There's got to be some rational end and means adopted to it that makes sense. What is the rational end of giving 100 people a right not to be subpoenaed by a grand jury that the rest of the population doesn't have? And, I don't think the House of Representatives should have anything to do with the self-dealing. But if you thought for some reason members of Congress should be treated differently than everybody else in the country, why just the members of the Senate? I mean, that's why I invoke the Roman Senate. I mean, we're at a state of tremendous decadence and corruption right now when the senators think that that's okay in order to get their vote for this terrible legislation that's been described so beautifully by our colleagues.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I do think ultimately this provision will be ruled unconstitutional for the reasons that you described. I want to read you just a short snippet here of a provision from the Senate rules. As you know, every member of the United States Senate is subject to the standards of conduct promulgated by the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Ethics. No different than House members, different standard of conduct, but nonetheless, equal force of obligations. Senate Rule 37.4 states very plainly, no member, officer, or employee shall knowingly use his or her official position to introduce or aid the progress or passage of legislation, a principal purpose of which is to further the official's or immediate family member's financial interest, or the financial interest of a limited class to which such individuals belong. This is Senate Rule 37.4 under the Senate Select Committee on Ethics.
That financial,
Help me understand this, Ranking Member Raskin.
You know, Senate Rule 37.4 restates the basic premise of our whole system of government. And Madison said that no man shall be a judge in his own case, right? That's why every legislature in the country has a provision just like the Senate rule you just cited. You can't vote on legislation that is going to narrowly benefit you or a small group of people like you. Well, that seems to me to be custom made for this situation. You've got 8 U.S. senators who get together to say, hey, there could be a payday for us. Why did they stop at $1 million? In fact, they didn't. You know, the $500,000 in each category is just the floor. It's not the ceiling. It starts there. But they could have started it on their rationale at 50 million, 100 million. I mean, Donald Trump is suing the U.S. government for $230 million, and his own Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, the guy who went over to interview Ghislaine Maxwell and pronounced himself satisfied with her answers, he gets to decide whether Donald Trump is going to get $230 million. Why? What was the injury? Donald Trump said he was injured by the authorization of a judicial search warrant at Mar-a-Lago. A court ordered it. They never appealed it. It was never struck down. You remember they found all kinds of classified documents illegally pilfered in his bathtub, and where the pool table was, they found everything there, but he doesn't like the way he felt. It hurt his feelings. And so he wants $230 million, and now Todd Blanche is going to get to decide. So these corrupt Republican senators say, hey, if Donald Trump can do that for $230 million, all I want is $1 million for my family. So those 8 got together, decided to violate that rule, decided to violate the 27th Amendment, and decided to violate equal protection.
Damn.
I'm glad you're laying it out for the record.
Thank you, Ranking Member Raskin. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Neguse.
That's
Ms.
the
Leisure
thing.
Fernandez, you're recognized.
Thank you. And it strikes me in each of the testimony that we've received tonight about each of the individual amendments, there's a theme that comes through. One is deep empathy and concern and care for the people you represent, the humble people who make us cry when we think about the impacts of these policies that are being passed here in D.C. that are terrible.
Hey, I agree with you. I agree with you.
But there's also another theme that came through, I think,
It's just that $500,000 automatic payout is what it is.
Our veteran on the panel speak about patriotism. And, you know, we heard
It'll take them forever to write this thing up, I'll tell you that, man.
Constitution and patriotism. And down to, you know, Representative Raskin, there is a sense that what they are doing is un-American. It is against the principles for which we stand as a country, that corruption should not be the coin of the land. And Representative Vindman, I think you said it so eloquently. that as a veteran, how does all of this,
Man, that same question I asked earlier.
not just with you, but with your fellow veterans and military that you know of, right? Is it a sense of what is right and this oath to the Constitution rather than to a man?
Well, what I see is today on, or I guess yesterday on Veterans Day, that as we hold this debate, that this is a betrayal of those values and what veterans served in this country for, and some that made the ultimate sacrifice to basically watch the Congress and the Senate self-enrich, to watch this president and this administration self-enrich themselves. It is un-American, it's unacceptable, and I will tell you that the veterans that I know, that I interact with, they see that plain as day, and the American people see that. And look, we may not be satisfied today or in the next few days, but we have seen that the American people have already said and made very clear that not popular policies.
But this is the history of our America. Our America has always been about struggle to make that more perfect union, and working in that struggle for that more perfect union is never about one vote, and it's never about one moment, but it is about continuing to push and to organize and to raise the issues that you all have. Because we did not eliminate slavery and abolish slavery quickly. It took us years. We did not get women the right to vote for over a century. We didn't give Native Americans the right to vote. The last case was in New Mexico in the 1960s.
Did she say slavery?
Right? And so this concept of what we are involved
Was I listening too hard? You know, these black kids hear slavery.
not something that we
Real easy. Hold on. Did y'all hear slavery or no?
vote that we're going to be taking tonight is incredibly sad and worrisome about who we are as a nation when we're going to have probably 9 votes against the amendment that when we move it, right? But we're going to have 9 votes against the amendments to protect those who are hungry.
Okay,
We're gonna have
I
9
know I wasn't
votes
tripping.
against the amendments to protect the Affordable Care Act and to protect Medicare and Medicaid and everything else.
They turned her mic down. I didn't. I promise y'all that.
That's not the end of our struggle, right? And I think that that's something that you have all done. I am going to yield to my ranking.
I hear they don't wait
Appreciate it,
proud.
'cause I wanted, something's been on my mind here, and I wanted to be able to say it before all of our time is out. Madam Chair, first I want to thank you for being here for most of the.
Okay, I wasn't listening all the way. I was actually looking for the next video
I
after
appreciate
this,
it.
but I appreciate y'all tapping in.
We have our differences, and
Can't listen to all these
but
motherfuckers.
I appreciate you being here. But I just want to note that for most of the 6 hours that we've been here, not a single one of your members could be bothered to sit in this room and listen and debate us. And they've been sitting home for 8 weeks, so you think they'd want to come here and defend this continuing resolution or defend the process or defend the policy that everybody seems to be so proud of. Instead, they spent the entire hearing sitting in your office, I guess just hanging out instead of working. But that's just a continuation of the same old laziness and failure to show up, to show up that we've seen for the last 8 weeks. And I got to tell you, again, I think if we're not listening to each other, if we're not in the same room, even when we're disagreeing with each other, we're not going to find common ground. And it really kind of bugs me because I think there's so much at stake in what we're doing here today. And again, people are really disappointed that we have not had
Excuse me.
a formal
First you on.
session. We've not
Five
had a
when we log
session
off.
for close to 8 weeks. And again, the issues we're hearing about today are so enormous and so important. But I just wanted to say that for the record, and I thank you for yielding me the time.
Well, thank you. I mean, we could have had the conversation of Representative.
I'm about to clock out of this for a second.
Had the conversation with the 14 members.
Because
who
they're
want to
going,
extend
but-
The Affordable Care Act tax credit section.
No,
We
my
can have
girl
a
gonna snap
conversation with
again.
People who care about.
I'm gonna let this
food.
play
It's
out.
not just- It's not just those who receive the SNAP benefits. It's the grocery stores, it's the farmers, it's the others. And I'll give you some time to address that.
Well,
Roxanne.
no, I just wanted to say the fact
See,
that
she
we're
just
not
talking low,
even
see?
considering a single one of these amendments is a metaphor for the idea
I
that
switch the
there's
camera,
a
please?
trust deficit and that our Republican colleagues have not
Hey,
shown themselves to
appreciate
be
your little,
reliable legislating
chart.
partners. We're in a moment right now where we're being asked to come back and we can decide, we can work these things out later. How can we trust that we'll have conversations and work these things out later when literally our first day back, no one is even here? Our first day back, we're not even having serious debate about, well, you know what? This is a good amendment. Let's offer it up. Let's have a vote on it. The fact that all of this was done as a take it or leave it not even, you can't even call it a negotiation. You vote for it or you leave it. That's the only option, and we're supposed to accept sick children, choose between sick children and hungry children, and that's supposed to be a choice for us.
Damn.
I mean, I refuse to accept that.
That's
And
real.
the fact that my Republican colleagues are not even here, as Mr. McGovern said, to have a debate. You mean to tell me of all the amendments that were presented, there's not one that the Republicans are open to saying, you know what, there's a good point there. Let's spend some more
Yeah,
time
50-50
on this.
poll on that. It's crazy.
Says that you don't want to work with us. That's the takeaway right now. You don't want to work with us. You don't want to feed children. You don't want to talk about health care. You don't want to do any of these things. Tonight, the last 50 some odd days is a metaphor for the environment that we are operating in right now, and the fact that everything was contingent upon a promise of a future conversation when we can't even have a right now conversation.
Damn.
Tells us everything we want to know about what is happening. And I hope the American people are paying attention to this.
Yeah.
Because when Democrats were in the majority, the things that we fought for were healthcare subsidies and feeding people and making sure we took care of people. When Republicans were in the majority, the things that they fought for were permanent tax credits for the wealthiest.
Now, to be fair, the extension happened during COVID. They said, you know what? By December 31st, 2025, we still gonna have the White House. Republicans not gonna fight back. We'll worry about this then. And now, then it's here. The rubber has meet the fucking road. And now all of a sudden, we have a situation where we need healthcare, tax subsidies, a budget, and a federal government that's actually working for the people.
And that's just facts. That's not a narration. That's not an opinion. That is just the facts about what
Hey.
was passed under each Congress. The fact that the PACT Act, some of the provisions are being rolled back, while the protections in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act remain the same. The fact that the Republican majority is doing all they can to rebrand that says that you know that it's bad. You know that it's bad. There was nothing beautiful about it. So I thank you all for everything. You know, people are watching, people understand. One of the things about being at home for so many weeks in a row was that I really had a sense to talk to people all over the district, and it is clear that the American people are on the side of healthcare, they're on the side of feeding people, they're on the side of taking care of their neighbors, and nothing that this Congress does in this moment is going to change that.
Thank you very much, and I would also point
Amen
out.
to that. I'm not going to stick here too much longer tonight. I got to be up early tomorrow. I got a client meeting. Jasmine Crockett was streaming earlier. We're going to get to what she was talking about. Let me make sure that she looks good on the screen for y'all. That's my girl right there, y'all. Hold on. People hate her. People love her. She gonna run numbers up on this stream. So let's see what my girl JC got to say. She was zoomed in, so I'm going to zoom in too. Appreciate y'all tapping in, though.
Hey y'all.
What's up?
Hopefully you can hear me.
I hear you. What's up?
Zach,
Talk to me.
tell me if I can be heard.
I hear you. I hear you fine.
Y'all, I'm having to do this by myself because
No,
I'm
I'm here
in
with you. What we talking about?
the
The man, you, JC.
airport. So I am hoping that my staff tells me that we are all good.
We good.
Because I want to jump on as my flight has been delayed
Again?
yet again.
Oh my God,
But
girl.
it's all good. I am not mad at air traffic controllers whatsoever. I am very happy. All right, Zach says we're good. I'm
Let's
not
zoom in.
mad
Let's
at air
go.
traffic controllers. I'm
We
not
got a
mad
little
at
bit in
any
the back,
federal
though.
workers except for the ones that have continued to get paid, which means it's like me and my coworkers. But that's a whole other issue. I'm obviously not mad at myself either. Anyway,
Talk to me.
so I want to jump on before I have to go on board my flight. Number one, I am headed back because, well, I got to do my job.
Let's go. We got to
And
work.
if you were concerned or if you had questions about how I plan to vote, I plan to vote no. So I am going and I'm going to cast my no vote.
Let's
I
go.
do have my staff paying attention so that they can make sure that I can answer any questions that you may have. Let me give you a general rundown. So I got my glasses on because I'm looking at my phone as I want to
I
talk
left
about
my
a couple
glass
of
at the table.
things
Sorry, though.
in this continuing resolution. Number one, we said that we were going to fight for the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies. That's not a part of this continuing resolution. I just want to be clear about that. So number one, the whole point of kind of going through this, we didn't quite accomplish it. So I'm like, it's still time to fight. That's number one.
Let's
Number
go.
two, I know that some are like, oh, but they're going to get a vote. If you pay attention to the Speaker of the House, and we can go back to Schoolhouse Rock if we want to, but
Our bill will come law.
any bill that we have must pass the House, the Senate, and then be signed into law by the president.
Facts.
So, here's the deal.
We got ways to go.
The House Speaker has said he's not bringing anything to the floor as it relates to the tax subsidies.
Oh.
So yes, the Senate Democrats may take a vote and it may feel good, and chances are it probably won't pass, or maybe it will pass, so that those Republicans in the Senate can pretend like they're about this life when they know that the House Speaker has already made it clear that he doesn't have any plans whatsoever of putting it on to the floor. So that's number one. So I feel like we didn't get anything. It was just cute to say. I also want to be clear that these crooks, and I am calling them crooks because we know that January 6th was a horrific day in our country. Somehow the president has decided that he should dig into the piggy bank and take hundreds of millions of dollars worth of taxpayer dollars away for how he felt about how he was treated about trying to make sure that we had an insurrection.
Hold on, I'm embarrassing. D winner. I'm just reacting to her live stream, dog. You on my stream watching her stream. Be mad at yourself.
In our country. This is after his DOJ paid $5 million to the family of Ashley Babbitt, who was literally climbing through the
Thank
police
you,
told
I
her,
appreciate you.
"Ma'am, back. And she didn't, and she found
Lifetime.
out. Okay,
Thank you for tapping in.
so they decided to give her family $5 million. Now, senators that are so offended because their phone records may have been subpoenaed as it relates to January 6th, they slipped a little provision in for them to get $500,000 if they, submit to the DOJ. And well, what do you think Trump's DOJ would do? Give them the money. So at the same time that they're saying we don't have money to make sure that there's health care, in fact, we don't even want to make sure that we take a vote on that after we've already increased your premium.
Actually, I don't think they're saying that. They're actually not saying that. What they are saying is a $500,000 piece, but they're not saying and or. They're saying all together. So because they're saying all together, they are bringing some solutions. It's just not what people want to hear on the right. No, sorry, on the left. And that's really where it is. Because honestly, remember, they had 8 Democrats come over. These Democrats caved. Now the Democrats are split. And it's like, you know what? Didn't y'all get elected to negotiate shit? But it's me.
Yeah, but we deserve $500,000. Mind you, we don't get paid $500,000 a year. In fact, in 2 years, we don't make $500,000. That's basically almost 3 years of our salary, and they decide that they should just be able to get that. So yet another reason to vote no. Let's see. We will finally get Adelita Grijalva sworn in. She is scheduled to be sworn in at 4 p.m. on tomorrow.
Lifetime, I
When
agree
I
with
get
you.
back, which is why I'm leaving late at night, I actually have to do a deposition first thing in the morning at 9 o'clock for the oversight committee. Um, let's
I got a meeting,
see.
so
What
I'll
else
be
do we
there.
need to talk about? We need to talk about a couple more things, and then I am going to ask my staff what questions y'all have. All right. So actually, we're just gonna talk about one more thing. Then I'm gonna answer these questions because
Oh, I
I
ain't
gotta
trying to
keep
have questions.
an eye in case it is time to actually board my flight. Um, y'all, the Republicans are real nervous. They real nervous. It is like I want y'all to think about this. So I woke up this morning and there was yet another interview where the mango turd decided that he wanted to have my name in his mouth. Okay.
Oh, mango
So he was on
turd.
Fox and Friends
That's
and
crazy.
he decided to, use his famous line
Mm,
that I'm low IQ.
mm.
What is so interesting about this
Also,
is that at the same time, he also started talking about like being from Somalia. So
what?
I don't know if he thinks I'm from Somalia or if he
Wait,
got me
you
confused
from
with
native land
like
here on the
another
motherland?
member. It was very weird, but
Mm,
not really, because y'all know that I don't think he all there in the head anyway.
talk to me.
Okay. So we know he's somebody crazy uncle. Mary, come get your uncle.
Mm.
Okay, that's fine on that side of things. But like they're so mad. So they are trying to convince people there's no way Jasmine could ever win Texas Senate. She's no one to be concerned about. Yes, that's who we want to run. Yet they are coming up with these bootleg stories, y'all. It is laughable that I would have one of these ridiculous networks reach out to my staff inquiring about the fact that I pay for security out of my campaign account. Now, mind you, in my mind, I do think that that's a good question. I think that's a question from maybe Speaker Johnson about why it is that he's not protecting members of Congress. I think
Because a lot of members live through their PACs. And it's not just at a federal level, it's at a state level. I'm in the third largest state of Florida. We know a lot of members, Democrat and Republican, that live through their PACs. And what happens is you raise money for your campaign. You also raise money for your PAC, your political action committee, right? And essentially, if you're traveling for a campaign event, let's say you're going to Houston for a campaign event or California, that flight, that hotel, maybe that apartment that you need in Houston to run your campaign or whatever, right? Excuse me, or Atlanta, sorry for burping in your face, or DC or Maryland, whatever. It's all in the campaign account. So you can have your security, your detail, your campaign manager, your comms people, all paid through the PAC, which is money raised from people who support you. And you also have it through your individual campaign. Now, the campaign money can't be spent on that, but the PAC money can. So what happens, a lot of it is the members understand that. It's about taking a lot of what you put in your PAC that you raise and also giving back to the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. And then from there, also realizing that y'all have this $174,000 a year salary, up to $200,000 if you're chairman, Speaker of the House, and other things like that. You'll get more perks and money. But it's a fact of y'all live in all these PACs, both sides, especially if you don't have no money. If you have money, you're still doing it because you ain't trying to spend your money. Spend the money you raise. Because technically, when you're going to these luncheons and these dinners and these seminars that are on the campaign side of things, when you officially clock out after 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you can spend that money freely and have that base. And it's not illegal. That's the other part. So it's a twisted narrative to run sometimes when people actually know the facts.
that it's really a good question as to why a member of Congress needs to pay for security out of money that they go and raise instead of focusing on making sure that they use that money to educate voters about why it is that their candidacy matters. I do think that it does people like me a disservice when you are so.
But every member's not Jasmine Crockett, right? I'm quite sure they're members that you'll see on stream and be like, damn, who is this member of Congress? Where are they from? So they wouldn't have to spend their campaign expenditure money on security because nobody knows who the fuck they are besides their constituents. But someone who's a firebrand, like my girl JC, Congresswoman JC, she's gonna at least need the security. So you're gonna raise the money. What is $500,000 on security if you're raising $10-30 million? What are we talking about? I'm gonna pull up an FEC report in a second. We're gonna see.
Outspoken. And then what happens is instead of you being able to put all your dollars into campaigning, instead you've got to do things like pay for your security. But I kind of value my life, so it is what it is. And it is what it is. So yeah, I'm like, y'all real desperate if y'all like mad about like the way that I go about making sure that I'm secure.
And I'm gonna be very transparent. I'm gonna make sure I flip this up. I'll get this live right. Hold on, so we can see. Hold on, yo. Right. Damn, but it ain't even right there. This is how much money. Let me stretch it out. Hold on, so y'all can see. I went to the FEC. This is how much money the Congresswoman has spent so far out of her campaign account. $3 million, right? She's raised 6.5. I get it, but you still have at least have $3 million, 2 point whatever, 3.1, yeah, to spend. And you can't spend it all at one time, right? Half that money has to go in the primary, half of it has to be spent in general. But because they drew out a district, essentially this money can be transferred over to another campaign account, whatever she decides to run for. But essentially saying, okay, cool, yes, you shouldn't be spending your money on this. Do we want to see what she's spending the money on? What's Madal spending the money on? Let's look at the highest amount, right? Highest amount, $150,000. Blue chip strategies, blue chip strategies, blue chip strategies. This is all strategic, all consultants. 150,000, 100,000, 105,000, 105,000. Advertising, online advertising. Blue chip strategies is eating. Who is blue chip strategies? You got to figure out who these people are. I'm gonna pull them up another day. Hold on. We got to figure out who blue chip strategies is, because that's who the congresswoman paying, right? This is who all that money's going towards. So make sure y'all can see it, right? So blue chip strategies is getting all the coins. Y'all can see the date. Y'all can see the money. Hold on, can y'all see the money? There we go. Now y'all can see the money. My bad on that. So blue chip strategies is getting all the cash, right? Segment Insight, 25,000. Citibank, and this is public record. This is public information, so it's not like it's hidden. Citibank, blue chip. I don't see that. It must be another pack, right? So that basically, even down to disbursement date, ActBlue, merchant fees, catering, 500, 300. So it's this is what I'm saying. I'm not knocking the expenses, but what I'm saying is, okay, cool. You're traveling to Vegas. You're staying at the Cosmopolitan. Covered. Travel, Texas. This is what I'm saying. So even though you have your $175,000 your campaign account, your congressional account, you still have this. So this $1,500 flight, and it's not just to go in on my girl JC, but it's a fact of, okay, this is how it happens. This is how campaign dollars get spent. So you raise the money, which ends up coming in from, as we see here, let's do individual itemized, just highest donors. Everybody's kept at 37. These are actual people. No real corporations, you see, cutting $3,500 checks. Devon Franklin, I want to say, isn't that the pastor? Yeah, the pastor. $3,500 checks. So essentially, out of this, you can spend maybe $1,750, I believe, in the primary or whatever. No, it's not maxed out. So you can spend half in the primary, half in general. But that's where you basically, okay, I'm going to get some of this money. Devin Franklin, then you can spend it in your campaign account how you see fit to win your election. Security being a part of that. So I'm not knocking it, but at the same time, I think we need to be transparent. Let me fix this back, y'all. We need to be transparent as where this money goes and how it gets broken down. Hold on, this is, yeah, that's the right way. So let's get back to this. I ain't gonna do this all night, y'all.
Like, it's giving, you don't have anything. So you just want to just make a lot out of nothing. But we could talk about costs. We could talk about the over $30 million that we've spent for JD Vance and his family to be on vacations, and that's been tax dollars. We could talk about the almost $100 million that we've spent so that Trump could go like post up at Mar-a-Lago, and it ain't been a full year, and that's also been tax.
John, you're not wrong there. John, you're not wrong. A lot of these organizations get paid and then kick back. So that's how they stay in the fold. A lot of it is you'll have consultants who have a group they work with, and it's like, you know what, yeah, you'll get 10, 15% off the media buy. And then you'll do 10, 15 off the finance. We'll do 10, 15 off the ground game. And basically it's a game of consultants who propping up basically candidates to run knowing that, oh, it's a slush fund. You have $1 million consultants out here, Martha's Vineyard, giving the Republicans, giving the Democrats. And that's why when I see it, it's like, damn, you mean to tell me that Democrats get elected, but have Republicans control their money? Think about that type of shit. Like, you have Democrats who basically have, yeah, that's my Republican homie. He controls my PAC. And yeah, he's going to help me tap in all the Republican money I need for re-election. Then I have my Democratic fundraisers tap in as well. We all working together to get me reelected. But to the outside world, what do you get? You get hate. You can't support this person. You can't whatever. It's like, it's bullshit at the end of the day, bro.
Dollars. We could talk about, like, again, the fact that he is trying to get hundreds of millions of dollars because he feels like he was wronged as it relates to January 6th. But now they want to write about me having to pay for my security, and they don't even have the right angle on that issue. But that's that. Okay, so let me see what questions you have, and then I'm gonna have to go. So I'm checking from my staff to see what they gotta say. Okay. So, okay. Zach said to back up. My bad. But I probably got that late. I just don't know if y'all can hear me because I'm not trying to be super loud because I'm in the lounge. Let's see. Tiffany wants to know, what can we do at this point? Is the House gonna vote the same as the Senate? Okay. So a couple of things that I need to clarify for Tiffany. In the Senate, they have the filibuster, which means that they have to get a total of 60 votes. We saw the 8 Democrats made sure that they could get over the filibuster. In the House, it's a simple majority. So we don't run the House, so we don't have the votes alone.
That means that they're going to pass this bill with no amendments. They're going to pass this bill with no amendments. And anything you need to know is what's in the damn bill. Because at this point, everything the Democrats fought for is going to be lost. I don't see enough Republicans having issues with these provisions to kill the bill and send it back to the Senate without the provision in it. Because then you'll need those 8 senators to vote on it again. And that's not going to happen if all y'all got to fly back out of DC after a vote. I don't see it happening that way.
But typically, the Freedom Caucus is really bad about wanting to vote for a continuing resolution. In addition to that, we still have one vacancy in the House on the Democratic side and one vacancy in the House on the Republican side. Not to mention, y'all know that this is an elderly body. So we're going to see who all is able to make it back. But, we always have people that's out sick and all kinds of stuff. So we don't even know what the numbers are going to be, not to mention, like I said, I'm delayed. Right now, it's myself and at least one other member that I saw sitting up here that are on this flight, but we're trying to get in so that we're in super early. There are other people that are going to be leaving tomorrow. We'll see what happens with flights tomorrow. There's been some drama on flights today. So it really matters about like how many people actually end up showing up in DC, because.
And that's going to be the biggest thing. Now, what I got to do, I got to get up in like 7 hours. I only get my son to school, but also I have a business meeting. And I'm a full-time lobbyist energy consultant. I'm trying to be a full-time streamer, but I'm not consistent as I need to right now, right? Full-time husband, full-time dad, full-time provider, full-time leader, full-time everything that you need. But more than anything, I'm gonna log out for the night because I gotta get a little bit of sleep and then make it all work. I appreciate all y'all tapping in tonight. We've had over 43,000 people, over 200 of y'all still here with me. What I want to do is really thank y'all. And please make sure you like and subscribe. My goal was to hit 8,250 subscribers today. I think we've surpassed that. But more than anything,
All I ask is when you lay your head on that pillow at night, I gave you everything I had.
give you everything I had. I appreciate every single one of y'all who tapped in for the stream. T-Neck, appreciate your support tonight, man. I'll be back on tomorrow. I'll log in the time, but if you don't have a time for me, just, you know what? Subscribe. So you get the notification bell when I tap in, log in, and drop some shorts off this, the clips I have from the stream tonight. Either way, y'all have a great night. I'm out.